Okay, so I thought this could be an interesting idea. I might try doing this sometimes this season on specific games if I feel like it, if I think that that could be interesting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give just sort of an in-depth recap of the game as a whole, the good about every team, the bad about every team, and kind of my thoughts on how a lot of the different individual players played. I rewatched the game this morning, took some notes, and now I'm going to just, explain how I feel about the game after giving it some time to digest, because, I gave my immediate thoughts right after the game on the two quarterbacks. And let's start there. We'll start with Dallas, and then we'll talk about Tampa Bay. So we'll start with the team that, eventually fell short. And what's interesting is that, you look at Dak's stats, one of the big storylines that's come out is just, how many yards he's thrown. And on one hand, it's like efficiency does matter. It's kind of similar to in basketball when someone has 30 points, but they're, not shooting well. Although it's not that Dak isn't shooting well, it's more so, you threw it 58 times, so that's an aspect of this. His yards per attempt was actually only 6.9, which is on the low side. It is. Last year, 6.9 yards per attempt would have been 23rd in the NFL. It would have been tied with Mitchell Trubisky and Gardner Minshew, so it is on the low side. Now, I think the caveat to that is there was some drops. And I think that his numbers, weirdly, I would actually say that his numbers, he probably should have had more yards. Although, again, if it's a typical game, he doesn't throw the ball nearly 60 times as well. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. The interception was not his fault. It was actually a beautiful throw, one of his best throws of the night. So, of course, the way football is, that one ends up being an interception. So, as I said last night, I thought Dak was awesome. I think that maybe it's getting a bit overblown. I think that people are already, willing to say he's a top 5 quarterback. Not sure I'm ready to go there yet. I'm not sure I'm putting him up there with, Russell Wilson and, above Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson just yet. But he does this, a few more times. He could put himself in that conversation. He really could. I think that, I want to see more. I'm not willing to say anybody is elite or a horrible player after one game that I didn't say, if you said 2 days ago Dak Prescott was a top 5 quarterback, people would have looked at you like you're crazy, but he has a big game, so that's the way it works. But again, I'm not trying to rain on the parade. Dak was really good. He absolutely was. I thought he did a lot of stuff well. There's Kellen Moore, who every time I hear his name, I keep thinking Kellen Mond, just given the way that, he was a big Kellen Mond, of course, the guy that the Vikings drafted, but that's besides the point. I thought there were I thought it was good. I thought there were a couple of odd plays that I didn't fully understand, and I'm giving all the credit to Moore. McCarthy does have a hand in it. So I thought that there was a couple things that I liked about Moore. A couple of things that I kind of questioned about Moore that I'm not sure if they should have done. They did what appeared to be sort of this RPO on a 3rd down and short that, did not work. Prescott handed it off. Elliott got tackled pretty quickly. They also had another option play. This was in the red zone on a 3rd and short, and Elliott got tackled by, that was Andrew Adams, the Tampa Bay's 4th best safety there. So again, there were just a couple of plays. I feel like on those downs, on 3rd down like that, you want the ball in your quarterback's hands, but I may be being a bit nitpicky. If those plays worked, everyone would have said, what a genius play. So just a couple standout plays, and I thought that he did a very good job outside of that. Him abandoning the run, I think, was smart. Not enough teams do that. You don't need to establish the run when it's not going to help you in the passing game anyways. Then just start passing, because the point of establishing the run is it sets stuff up for you. I don't know what there was to set up. Tampa Bay was pretty much going to play man coverage and try to blitz a lot and stop the pass as much as possible anyways. So you're not going to do too much. Dallas ended the game with just 2.42 points per drive. The points per drive are lower than maybe you would expect because, again, there were so much yards in this game, but there actually was a good amount of drives in this game because there was so much passing and not a crazy amount of points. I should mention as well, so, 2.42 points per drive. That would typically be, that would have been 13th in the NFL last year, but it would have been 2.75 points per drive if not for those 4 points that you expect to get on those missed kicks that they had. So, there was another missed field goal, but you can't blame Zerline for the 60-yarder. But, a couple of chip shots that he missed. So then that would have been a little bit better. So it was still a good offensive performance, just not as good as maybe the yards would lead you to believe. To talk about a couple of guys that I think are getting too much criticism, first, Zeke. I thought he was fine. I don't know what you're supposed to do. I mean, he didn't break any tackles or run over anybody, but you can't expect someone to do that every time they get the ball. And, typically what's made Zeke so great over his career is sort of his explosiveness, which when there's no holes to run through, there's not going to be too much you can do in that scenario. I think some people are bringing up he only had 3 yards per carry. Tony Pollard had 4.7 yards per carry, but Pollard had just 3 carries. I mean, you can't view it that way. That's just not how that works. So as a whole, it's just too small of a sample size. And Elliott had 11 carries on one of the best run defenses in the NFL. Yeah, you're gonna struggle to run the football. That's not too surprising. This is why people say you shouldn't pay running backs. And I typically say, unless it's a running back that teams are going to adjust their defenses around, which in this game they didn't, so Elliott just didn't have that much value in this game. But that's not an Elliott thing. It's just a positional thing. The other guy that I feel like is getting too much criticism is Micah Parsons. I thought Parsons was fine. He had a couple of bad plays, for sure. I mean, for whatever reason, there was a couple times when he was playing man against Gronkowski. I don't love that. I also don't understand why. So the Cowboys wanted to play a cover one play. Sure, fine, I get that. Every team does that. It's a good coverage. They wanted to do that. I don't get why you have a safety coming in and playing in the middle field area, in a robber concept. That's sort of the whole area. I would have much rather had the linebacker play there, being Parsons, so that way he doesn't have to be stuck playing man coverage on, Gronkowski. That's just not a great matchup for him, quite frankly. And it's a tough situation. And a couple of his quote unquote bad plays were miscommunication stuff, as opposed to like the big catch early on. That was a communication thing. That wasn't him just sucking. So his Pro Football Focus grade was 71.9. That's a good grade. That's better than most linebackers had at any point last season. So that's not bad whatsoever. And there was a clip that went viral of him doing his job. He moved in on play action, then got back into the hole because he was playing in the hole on that play. And then the throw was sort of off to the side, away from where he's supposed to cover, and it was caught. I don't know. I think that an element of this is Parsons, just, the allegations about him. People don't like him, which I understand. And I also think part of it is just sort of people seeing something on screen. I think the average football fan, when they see a catch, they just blame whatever defender was the closest to that catch, even if it wasn't actually that defender's fault. And that Parsons got caught up in that a couple of times. But I thought that he was fine. It wasn't like an awesome performance, but he was fine. A couple of other Cowboys who were, awesome, or I guess one Cowboy who was awesome first is Amari Cooper. 13 catches, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's a heck of a day right there on the stat sheet. Again, the 58 throwing attempts, that's going to help things a little bit. But still, he looked awesome. He absolutely did. And I felt like some of it was matchup based, but some of it wasn't. Some of it was him legit beating good corners. So as a whole, I think, again, you're putting up 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is a great day. I guess the flip side is, just for Cooper, kind of the negative about him has never been that he can't have big days. It's that the consistency stuff. But starting strong right here, so that's good to see for Dallas. Also, I thought Michael Gallup definitely showed some stuff, although I believe he got banged up a little bit, and I think that actually hurt Dallas when he did get banged up, for sure, because they couldn't attack Ross Cockrell the way that they could when they had the big three there. CeeDee Lamb had a up and down day. Now, you just look at Lamb's numbers, they look great. 7 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown. That's, again, over 100 yards, great day. There's a bit of a flip side to this, which is the drops were an issue. And, a couple of big drops. That one that turned into an interception, that's just unfortunate, right? You can't really blame him for the interception. That's kind of just a bad break by Dallas. But you want to be able to make those catches. However, again, if you can get open, I'm not really concerned about the drops. They're a thing, but it's not something that Lamb has had a big issue with over his career, so I'm not really too concerned about it. But in terms of one game, there was some good and bad. And to end with just if we've talked about the good, we've talked about the bad, let's talk about the ugly. First of all, Greg Zuerlein, he was a mess. He missed a field goal you should never miss and an extra point, which you should rarely miss. So to me, that's not enough of a reason to write a guy off. He also missed a 60-yarder, and it actually looked somewhat good. So I didn't, I thought that there was a chance there. And he made some other ones. He made that 48-yarder late in the game. That's a clutch kick. And to me, clearly he's shown enough, in my opinion, with that 48-yarder to give him another week. Don't run him out of town just yet. He did overperform his career average kicking. He overperformed his career average kicking percentage last season. So it's not like he's fallen off a cliff or anything. It's not like he's on a decline. It was a bad game, and it happens to be week 1. So people are going to wonder, has he fallen off a cliff? Or maybe he's fallen off a cliff, and this was the start of it. So I think you have to give him another game, which is unfortunate because you don't want to lose another game due to kicking. So that's that. He was not good, though. Listen, I think Cowboys fans are saying, oh, we only lost because of our kicker. Well, kickers are part of the sport. Kickers are football players too. And no one would ever say, oh, we only lost because our quarterback played bad. So it's weird that, it's similar in hockey. People will say, oh, you only won because of your goalie. Well, goalie is part of the game. So yeah, that's why they won. The other mess, Anthony Brown, he had a rough day. There's no getting around it. He was targeted 10 times, gave up 9 catches, 134 yards, 47 of those were on an Antonio Brown touchdown. It was just a rough day. And listen, going up against Tampa Bay, it's going to be a rough day at the office for someone, and this time it was Anthony Brown right here. All right, let's talk about Tampa Bay here. So, there was a lot of really good, starting off with Tom Brady. Tom Brady this might be his best game in a Buccaneers uniform. It was up there. The Super Bowl was really good as well, and obviously had a lot of implication. I think the Washington football team game in the wild card round was also very good. But still, I would definitely say that Tom Brady, he was awesome in this one, for sure. There was really not too much I can critique with him, I don't think. His IQ was clearly, he was showing off at some points with the smart stuff he was doing. He had 379 yards on, again, 50 attempts. So a lot of attempts, which makes the yards look a little bit better. His efficiency was better than Dak's, 7.6, and he's never usually a huge yards per attempt guy, but he's gotten more yards per attempt once he's been playing with better receivers, which does make sense. 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but both interceptions were not his fault. One was a tip pass off of Fournette, and the other was just on a Hail Mary. So you don't really blame him for either one of those. It was a perfect performance, and it reminded you of oh yeah, that is what this guy can do. It was absolutely remarkable, and at 44, this should not be possible. It's just amazing. It's truly remarkable, and it's very fun for me as a Buccaneers fan to get to say that's my quarterback, basically. But even if you're not a Buccaneers fan, I feel like even if you hate him, there has to be the I hate you, Tom Brady, but damn it, do I respect you? Because yeah, that's what happened, right? He's just so incredible, and I feel like I'm Chris Collinsworth talking about Odell Beckham Jr. or something when I talk about Brady, but we should be going crazy over him. He's amazing, and all the little things. I highly suggest you watch my video where I broke down his game, because I think I got into some details about certain things that was very fun for me, at least. I think you might enjoy it as well if you're this over 10 minutes probably into a video about a game that ended yesterday. I would imagine you're a big football fan as well. All right, some other good. We'll keep going with the good, then we'll get into some not so good. Antonio Brown. We all said at the beginning when he had a couple big plays, man, the fact that this is Tampa Bay's third best receiver, that's crazy. Well, he might be the first best receiver. He certainly had, he had the most yards in this game, 5 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown. You also have Rob Gronkowski, so, the former Patriots coming on strong for Tampa Bay. He had 8 catches for 90 yards, out of the tight end position. That's incredible. A pair of touchdowns as well. The guy's 32 years old. He's not 37. Like, he can still play. I think that, again, for him, it's not the years, it's the mileage. But at the same time, he did have a year off. He's maybe is going to be a really good player for them, or at least a starting tight end, which, I mean, if he can still play, the connection him and Brady has, that's going to be really good. So Chris Godwin, he had a great stat line, 9 catches, 105 yards, and he had a touchdown. So the numbers, great. If you didn't watch the game and only look at the numbers, you'd say, okay, Godwin went off. And he did, but he had 2 major mistakes. So the first was a drop that could have been a big play. It was kind of over his head. It was a tough play. It would have been a good catch. Also kind of one you expect a number 1 receiver to make, which, we feel like Godwin should be. He is that caliber of player. So it's one that you expect him to make, I think. Although I would say it's a little bit more forgivable than the fumble was. The fumble just can't happen. And again, it was a weird play, right? He was sort of spinning, ends up running right into a helmet, basically, where the ball is. It pops out. It's tough. It's unfortunate, but it just can't happen. I mean, in that spot, he holds on to the football there. The Buccaneers almost certainly punch it in, and they feel great. And that allowed Dallas to nearly steal that game. That could have been a game-ending decision right there. That's how big of a deal it was for Godwin. So, again, do I fear for Godwin doing this throughout the season? No. So, in terms of long-term concerns, not really a long-term concern. But it is a bit of a short-term concern. Just it was a bad, he didn't have his best game for sure. Speaking of not having your best game, Mike Evans did not have his best game, statistically at least, and just overall, it's not like he was doing too much wrong. I did notice there was a play early on when he wasn't able to make a catch, and it seemed like Brady kind of almost just stopped looking to him. We saw it later as well, where Mike Evans, there was a ball that was tipped, but who knows if Brady knew it was tipped at the time. Maybe he was just mad at Evans. I don't know. Evans only 3 catches for 24 yards, only 4 targets. It wasn't Mike Evans' best game. It just wasn't. Am I long-term concerned about Mike Evans? No. No one's been more consistent over Evans, and he will have these, dips game in, game out, where one game he'll have 24 yards, the next game he'll have 124 yards or 224 yards. He was also a red zone monster last year, just didn't get those opportunities in this game because other guys were getting open. I think when you see them go up against a better defense that's not allowing guys to get as open, then Brady will start throwing it to the guy who can make catches with less separation. That's just the way I view it. When you have a plethora of weapons, guys, not everyone is going to get 100 yards every game. But, it wasn't his best game either. I think it's fair to say that that's the case. Also, speaking of not their best games, the entire halfback room, I tweeted out at one point, just running backs should not be allowed, because the running backs were just, there's just mistakes that shouldn't happen. Rojo ended up getting benched because he's a gifted runner, but that's just all he can do. He just can't do that other stuff very well, and he fumbled the football. He only played 6 snaps, which is kind of crazy. So Rojo is... He played the 3rd most snaps out of the halfback room. Was it just a pure benching, and they're going to now have him be running back 3, or is it something else? I don't know. But to me, Leonard Fournette is the starter. He was the starter in week 1, and I think he's going to be the starter now. I thought he played fine. He had a mistake. He did, that tipped pass, but his hands have never been the best thing about him, which is why they brought in Giovanni Bernard, who looked solid in 16 snaps. I think, he played that entire final drive. He is going to be the 3rd down back. Leonard Fournette will be the 1st and 2nd down back. So I think that's what they're going to end up doing right here. So, yeah, for Ronald Jones, it's starting to look like that maybe wasn't the best draft decision, getting him in the 2nd round at this point, which sucks because he is a gifted runner. It's just the other stuff that's an issue. Moving on to defense, I thought Jamel Dean, it wasn't his best day. He did give up a touchdown, and he also had a missed tackle late in the game that led to that CeeDee Lamb, deeper play. So that was, that put them in field goal range. So those weren't great. I didn't think he had his best day. He wasn't a mess out there, but he didn't have his best day. Part of that is just going up against good talent. That's what the Dallas receiving core can do to you. I thought Carlton Davis looked great. I thought he really did. And again, for Davis, we all know if he's not getting burned deep, he's playing lockdown defense. I mean, that's what he does. He doesn't have the best speed, but he is just so good at everything else. So there was a big moment, actually, about 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Tampa Bay is up 2 at this point, so if Dallas can drive down the field, they can put up some points, take the lead. Ends up forcing a 3-and-out, which at the time felt great for Tampa Bay, and that was all on Carlton Davis's great defense. That's what he was able to do. Just played lockdown defense on Amari Cooper, who had a great game in his own right, but that was usually away from Davis. Again, Davis almost had that interception. That would have really made it a great day. But as a whole, Davis looked like a true cornerback 1, which he always does when he's not going up against speedy receivers. The cornerback depth, a bit of an issue, but again, that's also just what Dallas can do to people is, you have to have 3 good corners. And with Sean Murphy-Bunting out for some time, I believe Bruce Arians said he doesn't believe it to be season ending, which is good, but it could still be concerning until he gets, better. Sean Murphy-Bunting is the guy out. I can't remember if I said him or Carlton Davis, but Sean Murphy-Bunting is the guy who's out for a bit. So yeah, as a whole though, I don't know. I was even thinking, like, should the Bucs try to trade, someone like Ronald Jones to like Baltimore to try to get a cornerback, a corner, back, not cornerback. But I just don't know if Baltimore wants to do that given their situation. So maybe you could try to make that work. Dallas New Orleans actually just got Roby from the Texans. So maybe you looked for the Texans for something else. But I don't know who else you want there, really. So again, we might just have to see some Ross Coughlin for a few days. I thought the front 7 looked great. Lavonte David and Devin White doing what they do. They looked fine. And they looked typically how we expect them to look. The pass rush, I thought, looked awesome, quite frankly. Again, there's just only so much you can do when you're going up against a team like Dallas who can get the ball out so quickly and have receivers who can get open so quickly. And you have a hole in your secondary and a couple holes because their safeties got banged up as well. There's just only so much you can do with that pass rush. A lot of it was just Todd Bowles blitzed a lot, but I thought that the talent itself still looked very good. And again, there's only so much you can do one to cover. Like I always say, the games are won on the outside, and I think this that's why they still gave up yards and points. But the pass rush itself did their job. A couple other final thoughts is the few fluky turnovers I think are key, and the way I see it, Dallas had 1 fluky turnover and Tampa Bay had 3 fluky turnovers. All of those ended up being about a 5-ish point swing based on just where they happened on the field. Because while the Dallas one was technically right at the 50-yard line, they were throwing at their own 20 and the ball got back to around the own 20. So that was that. So as a whole, I think that, if these teams play 100 times, I fully expect Tampa Bay to win more than 50 of those times, even though, you could argue if Dallas just makes another field goal or 2, maybe they win. A couple final thoughts. You might hear the mowers in the background trying to, finish this up real quick, so that's not too annoying. Byron Leftwich, still does those annoying first down runs, but they did get away from that a bit, and I also thought that the Brady shaking his head no was a bit interesting. I thought that was fun where if you missed it, so Leftwich was saying something to Brady and Brady kind of looks at the sideline and shakes his head no. I don't know what it was. People are going to speculate. It's very possible it was just like a personnel thing because I know Gronkowski was running off the field then, so maybe they were just talking about that. But either way, I don't think it's a big deal. I think that happens, all the time throughout the course of a game. And when it's Tom Brady, if it would be different if this is, a great offensive coordinator. But it's Byron Leftwich, who's young and doesn't have an ego, and that's good for a football team. Also, I wrote, Bradley Pinion is a god. He had an incredible game. Also, of course, Ryan Suckup making those key field goals. Very incredible. So again, I don't know if you can hear this. It's very loud for me. So I'm actually just at the end of this video anyways, so I will wrap it up. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Bit of a long one, but I thought it could be just sort of fun to talk about this stuff. And, in a more unique way, a different way than I typically make videos. But I think this could be a fun way to get a lot of thoughts out. I might still have some film studies about this game coming out. I don't know. But yeah, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.